Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're doing a video, pretty important video. We're going to be doing some maintenance on a chainsaw. I'm going to show you guys how to do that today. Big thing is, Sportsman chainsaw is a very valuable tool, whether it be cutting in food plots or general maintenance on your property. It's good for a guy to know how to maintenance a chainsaw, so we're going to get into that today. Everything from sharpening to just general maintenance of the engine. Look forward to showing you that here shortly. All right, so the saw we're going to be using today is a 450 Rancher by Husqvarna. It's a good all-purpose saw for whether you're clearing woods or harvesting firewood, which is what we're going to be doing. We're doing a little bit of land clearing, expanding the food plot. Now that deer season's coming down to an end, we're going to have a chance to get out in the woods and do some property maintenance. So look forward to showing you how we do this. Couple items we're going to be focusing on today, folks, is the bar, chain, and then the engine. We're going to be looking at the chain, bar, as well as all fluids, air filter, spark plug, and show you what you need to do to have your saw ready, because when you take care of your equipment, it's going to take care of you out in the field. So first things first, what we're going to do, we're going to flip this saw around. We're going to go ahead and remove the nut. So once you've removed your nut, you can go ahead and take your side cover off. On a Husqvarna, the clutch engagement ring is on the side cover. Typically on a steel, your clutch is flipped 180 degrees and the engagement's inside the casing of the saw. But in this case, it's on the motor cover. Here's a tip on the Husqvarnas in particular. Make sure before you pull that side cover off, you engage your chain brake. If you don't, you're going to have a heck of a time getting this engagement ring opened back up to put the cover on. Cover's off. We're going to go ahead and remove the bar and chain. Now that the bar and chain are off, we got to clean this chain, get all the foreign debris off of it. It's got a buildup of wood chips and sawdust and bar oil. And I found that the easiest way to do that is to let it soak in some regular unleaded. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to just go ahead and I'm going to take this chain and put it in a small container of regular unleaded gasoline. While the chain's soaking, we're going to go ahead and take our power unit. We're going to pop open these tabs to access the engine. Once the tabs are off, the top cover comes off to the side. Remove the air filter. You're going to want to make sure you clean your air filter, as it tends to get clogged up with debris. Your best friend on a chainsaw is going to be compressed air. Go ahead and blow this out. This one wasn't in too bad a shape. Just make sure it's free of obstruction and to keep all that junk out of your engine. The next step, we're going to be removing the spark plug. Just pop the spark plug boot off. Get that wire out of the way. Then you can either use a screw or a socket and a ratchet. Just get that spark plug out. They tend to get pretty fouled up when you're using your saw a lot. As you can see, a lot of carbon buildup doesn't necessarily mean you need to replace it. We're just going to clean it with the wire wheel. We'll take you guys over here, and I'm just going to hit it on the wire wheel. You can see that got a lot of the buildup on it. I'm still going to take a piece of emery cloth or sandpaper and get in that electrode. Just got some 220 grit sandpaper folded in half. Just going to kind of jam it in the gap. Just kind of go back and forth. All that does is just give you a clean surface for a spark. Remove any excess carbon. Now we're going to re-gap it. I typically gap the plug to 24 thou. So we're just going to get a spark plug gap tool. Check our gap. Looks like we're sitting right there at 24 thou. So we're just going to leave the gap alone and reinstall the spark plug. Make sure you start it by hand to prevent any cross threading. Get it snug back down. Put our boot back on. Spark plug's done. We're going to go ahead and put our air filter back on. Now I forgot to mention, I store all of my sols dry. Some people have different opinions on what they do. I just figured it's always good to store without fuel in it to keep the fuel from going bad and keep some of that ethanol from eating up the fuel lines. Next thing we're going to do is get this side cover cleaned up before we reinstall it. Keep in mind we've still got our chain soaking while we're doing all this. That's just going to keep us keep our chain clean and give us a clean surface for when we go ahead and sharpen it. So we're going to clean this up. Best thing you can do is use some kind of brake cleaner or a carbon choke cleaner and compressed air. So we're just going to spray this down with some carbon choke cleaner because that's what I have. Same thing, works just as good as brake clean. Then I'm just going to use a wire brush. You can get these at any auto parts store, Harbor Freight. We're just going to break some of that larger material up. Doesn't have to be perfect. We just want to get any junk out of there that may prevent the operation of our saw. Make sure you get close to your tensioner arm. Hit that with some compressed air. Now we're going to go ahead and set that off to the side. We've got the saw flipped around. Now we're just going to do the same thing in the clutch area. And we're going to make sure that our oiling port that you can see right here on this particular saw is free of any obstruction. We don't want to keep any of that bar oil from getting to our bar and chain. That brush is pretty much just breaking up some of the larger particles. That way they come out easily with the compressor. We're just going to take a rag and go ahead and just wipe our clutch. Get any of that dust, junk off our flywheel clutch here. Ran out of shop rags, so we're using paper towel today. Now we're going to go ahead and get this bar put in the vise, and I'll show you what we need to do on the bar. Now you want to make sure you go ahead and get these two ports here. That's where your tensioner arm is going to ride, as well as you can see on each side of the bar, we have a small oil port, so we're going to make sure we blow compressed air through that, make sure we're getting oil to our bar. I'm going to flip it over and do the same thing. Now you're going to want to make sure that your bar tip spins smoothly without any binding. If you have any binding, maybe time for a new bar or a bar tip. This one's good. Oil ports are clear. Our mating surface with the chain is smooth. That's another thing you want to check for. If you have any burrs or nicks in your surface where your chain's going to ride, that may cause you issues during cutting. You can smooth those out with a flat file. Additionally, what you can do is, what I do is when I remove the chain from the gasoline bath, I'll go ahead and hit it with the wire brush and the air compressor, which I've already done. Chain's hanging up right here. Now we're going to get her installed and show you how to sharpen it. So whenever you're putting your chain back on your chainsaw, good practice is to go ahead and flip the bar 180 degrees. So you can see this bar, the lettering's worn off. So you can just look at the stamped measurements on the bar. As you can see, the bar came off this way, so we're going to flip it 180 and reinstall it this way. That keeps your wear even on your mating surface here, keeps it from getting hot and mushrooming out. Just excessive wear gets you more life out of your bar. We'll get our chain around first. Then we'll get our bar in behind our sprocket, seated into place. You want to go ahead and get your teeth kind of seated in your bar. pull that bar forward, take up some of the slack. We can adjust the slack later once we reinstall the side cover. So as you can see, I removed the chain. Get a good angle here. I removed the chain from the unleaded gasoline. Look at all that sediment and junk and the color that all that debris turned to gasoline. That was fresh, unleaded, in a clean container. So now we've got a nice clean chain for sharpening. Now we can go ahead and put our side cover back on. When you're putting the side cover back on, make sure your alignment screw pin is inside the alignment hole on the bar, or your tensioner hole, I mean. We're going to leave that about a quarter turn loose, and that's going to allow us to move our bar back and forth and adjust our tension. To set the tension, as you can see here, you've got a lot of slop. That could cause damage to your sprocket and your bar if you leave that too much slop in your chain. So we're gonna get the proper amount of chain tension set, and I'll show you how to do that real quick. So you want to leave your side cover about a quarter turn loose or so, enough to where you can have some room to move your bar back and forth. And what we're going to do is take a flat blade screwdriver, need a smaller screwdriver. We're going to go ahead and turn our adjustment knob or our adjustment screw until we see that chain start to have some of the slack taken out of it. And what we're looking for is a little bit too much slack still. And if that screw's hard to turn, back off your side cover a little bit. All right, so you see right here we've got a little bit of snapback. That's what we want. You want to be able to fit a small screwdriver when you pull your slack out. You want to be able to fit a small screwdriver under the tooth, between the tooth and the bar. So now our chain tension is set correctly. We can go ahead and put the top cover back on and get it set up in the vise to sharpen. Don't forget to tighten your side plate back down once you have your tensioner set. Now we can put the top cover back on and get it viced up to sharpen. Now we're going to go ahead and throw it in the vise and get to sharpening. Once you've got your saw in the vise, you want to go ahead and make sure you pinch it and allow some room for that chain to move down in the gully here of the vise. When I release the brake, we can move that chain freely. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and find the master link. I know on some of the steel bars, the master link is color coded. On this particular bar, you can see right here, we've got a gold master link. That's going to be our start and our end point. Tell us where we're at when we're sharpening. Files we're using is this Oregon set. You can get it on Amazon for about 20-25 bucks. I really like it. Rolls up into a pouch you can take out into the field. It's got your 3 common sized files, your file handle, depth gauge, your flat file for hitting your depth gauges on your chain, which we'll go over, and then an angle guide, which I personally don't use, but that's there if you'd like to use that. Our chain's going to call for a 3/16 round file, so we're going to go ahead and get our 3/16 file. We're going to go ahead and get our handle out of there as well. So what we're doing is we're going to be hand filing. So that involves simply a 3/16 round file for this particular chain and the handle. So if you look right here, each tooth has its own rake. Some of them can be particular 30 degrees, for example. So we're not going to use the guide. We're just going to go by feel and by hand. I feel like that's the best and most efficient way to do it. So what we're going to do is you're going to want to match your file angle to the angle of your rake. And what that's going to do is allow your file to make full contact with your cutting surface. So we're going to match our angle and we're going to push. And as you see, as I'm filing, kind of hard to do with one hand, I'm rotating the file. That's going to give us a little bit better outcome here because we're allowing the file to not get clogged up with material. So we're not putting a whole lot of pressure, just holding steady pressure on that angle, and we're just pushing. Do not bring your file back. The files are designed to be one direction and push. And you can just kind of feel it. When you feel that roughness start to go away and your files start to glide, you'll know you're about there. So this tooth is good. We started right here, rear of the master length, so that'll give us a good gauge to go all the way around. And we want these teeth, if you can see this right here, this first cutting surface, this first cutting angle, you want that to be what we call cat's claw sharp. You want it to kind of sticky sharp. So this tooth is done. We're going to go ahead and do the rest of them and flip the bar and do the other teeth facing the other direction. You'll notice some teeth are better than others. This tooth only required maybe 5 or 6 strokes. We can go ahead and move our chain to the next tooth. Just repeat the process. Make sure you're rotating your file and make sure you're just pushing, not pulling the file back. You just want to be pushing the file forward. And that's how we sharpen our saw. And after we're done with our round file, we're going to go ahead and hit our depth gauges, which are these small, I guess you could call them teeth, in between your cutting teeth. What we're going to do is we're going to put our gauge on here in a flat file and take this depth down to where it allows our cutting tooth to remove wood. So the more you take off of your depth gauge, the more aggressive of a cut you're going to get. Be careful with taking too much off your depth gauges. That could lead to the removal of too much material per revolution, and that could cause bucking and really create dangerous situation. So I'll go ahead and show you guys how to take the depth gauges down. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our depth gauge, place it over our tooth, leaving the depth tooth exposed, and we're just going to let the file do all the work. Let it ride right in this groove where the tooth is exposed. That's going to keep you from taking too much material off. Just going to run the file across a couple times. As you can see, we barely removed, focus in here. As you can see, that shiny spot on the tooth, that's where our file was running across. We barely removed any material, but it's enough to make a difference on the depth of our cuts. And after you're all said and done, before I put my saw away, I like to make sure at least the bar oil is full. I mentioned earlier in the video, I don't store my saws with fuel in them. I store them dry. So we're going to go ahead and top off the bar oil. Just using some steel bar and saw chain lubricant. I believe it's steel platinum. I run several steel saws. I just like this Husqvarna in particular. I'm going to top it off, try not to spill any. And I would say we've got the old Husqvarna ready to eat some wood. And if you're wondering about the premix ratio that I like to run in my saws, I run 40-to-1 on pretty much all my outdoor power equipment. I'd rather lean on the safe side with the oil content, be a little bit richer on the oil than be lean on the oil. So that's where we're at. Well guys, that's all I got for you today. Our saw is ready to hit the woods and harvest some firewood. So whether you be in the woods or on the farm, this is what you need to do to get your chainsaw ready for the season. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.